So imagine this. You're finally graduating with your master's, right? The big moment, cap and gown, all the works, and your parents skip it. Yep, they choose a spa weekend for your sister instead. I know, insane. But here's the twist. They come back a year later, begging you to plan her dream college send-off. And let's just say they have no idea what you're about to do. Stick around, because this story takes a wild, satisfying turn you won't see coming. So, okay, picture this. I'm sitting in the third row at my master's graduation, and I am absolutely wrecked. Like, not just tired, but full on fever, 102 degrees, shivering and coughing so hard my ribs ache. The past 48 hours, a blur of vitamin C packets, sleepless nights, and last-minute portfolio tweaks. I had been running on pure adrenaline, trying to keep my eyes open and my hands steady. And, well, physically, I was a mess. But the worst part wasn't the fever or the body ache, it was the seats in front of me. 3 seats, carefully taped to the fridge months ago, now glaring back at me empty. My mom had promised she'd be there. My dad nodded over his newspaper, and Chloe had even looked up from her phone just long enough to ask about Wi-Fi. And now, nothing. Just this gaping, silent void. I tried calling them. My parents went straight to voicemail. Chloe's phone rang once, then disconnected. I texted, ceremony starts at 10. I'm so nervous. Can't wait to see you. No reply. At first, I made excuses in my head. Traffic. Maybe Dad's car broke down. Maybe they were frantic trying to get to me. But as the ceremony began, as the procession filed into the stadium, that cold, heavy realization settled like lead in my stomach. They weren't just late. They weren't coming. And suddenly, the fever, the exhaustion, the stress of finals, it all paled in comparison to the sting of that truth. I had worked so hard for this moment. Every late night, every job, every sacrifice, it felt invisible. And then it hit me. This wasn't an accident. This was exactly how things had always been. I was the capable one, the responsible one, the one who understood, who planned, who sacrificed. Chloe was the golden child, coddled, adored, always needing validation, always getting preferential treatment. I had stayed home from study abroad trips to help my dad recover from surgery. Chloe and my mom went to Paris. 2 weeks later, I had worked part-time jobs to pay for drafting supplies. Chloe got a brand new BMW for her sweet 16. I was always the one to understand, to absorb, to support. Chloe was the one who was nurtured, pampered, and indulged. And now, at the culmination of 6 years of higher education, I was staring at 3 empty seats. My name snapped me back, Alina Russo. I had to stand. My legs shook from fever and adrenaline. I pushed myself up, walking toward the stage, scanning those seats one last time. Nothing. A void. I shook the dean's hand, accepted the diploma tube, smiled for the camera, and felt the deafening silence of my family's absence like a weight pressing into my chest. As I walked back down, dizziness hit me like a wave. My phone buzzed maybe. Finally, an explanation, a flat tire, a family emergency, anything. But no, it was a picture message from Mom. Her and Chloe, smiling, glowing in white terry cloth robes, hair wrapped in matching towels, standing in front of some spa resort. The text, sorry, honey. Chloe needed this girl's weekend before her finals. She was just so stressed. We'll celebrate you later. Zox, my eyes went blurry. Wait, what? They chose a spa day over my graduation? I was sick, alone. And this was supposed to be the moment I'd worked for years to reach. The cold but sharp reality hit me harder than the fever ever could. And it wasn't just this day. It was a pattern. I'd spent my life being the one who handled everything, who worked, who sacrificed, who understood. Chloe had been the favorite, the one who got everything she wanted with ease. And here it was, laid bare, right in front of me in those 3 empty seats. I forced myself to keep moving through the crowd. Applause, hugs, cameras flashing all around me, everyone celebrating with their families, and I just held my diploma like a lifeline. My roommate Sarah saw me and her face fell. "Elina, you look awful. Where are they?" I couldn't even show her the spa photo. Too humiliating, too sharp. I just shook my head, letting her hug me, telling me to rest, and I did, collapsing into my apartment, stripping off the gown, letting the exhaustion and emotional gut punch finally catch me. Hours later, I woke to my phone blinking with notifications, friends cheering, missed calls, but the one that caught me, Mom. I picked up. Voice hoarse, she breezily asked if I had a nice day. I said, "I graduated." "Mom, flat, heavy." She laughed about Chloe in the spa, like that was the story of the day. My fevered voice whispered the truth. I was sick. I'd been alone, and I'd been ignored. Her response, "Oh, you probably shouldn't have even been there." Then, she said we'd celebrate later. Later. My dad, a distant, awkward, placating voice. "We'll see you tomorrow." No apology, no acknowledgement, just casual dismissal. And in that cold, dark apartment, staring at my diploma and my reflection, it hit me this wasn't just one moment of selfishness. This was a pattern, a deep structural flaw in our family. I had always been the one to understand, to absorb, to support. Chloe had been the golden one, always favored, pampered, indulged. And this day, my graduation, the culmination of my years of work, was the harshest, starkest example yet. Lying there, fevered, coughing, exhausted, I realized it fully. I had spent my life building a foundation that everyone else stood on, but no one had stood for me. And in that moment, I understood the cold, sharp truth. Being capable didn't mean being loved. And it was a truth that cut deeper than any fever, deeper than any exhaustion, deeper than any heartbreak. That day, I learned exactly what it felt like to be invisible to the people who were supposed to be your biggest supporters. The betrayal, the hurt, the exhaustion, it all came together in a moment of piercing clarity. And though it was awful, though it burned, I would never forget it. It was the moment everything changed. I had been the capable one, the responsible one, the one who always understood. And now, finally, I understood what it really meant to be alone. Even in a room full of cheering people, that cold, aching clarity stayed with me, sharp and undeniable, like a lesson carved into my bones. I wasn't just sick or tired or exhausted. I was standing in the truth of my life, in the realization that for all my work, all my sacrifice, my parents had consistently favored my sister, and it had been invisible to me until that exact moment. And wow, it hit hard. But also, there was a strange clarity in it. I saw everything, the pattern, the years, the tiny choices, and the big ones. It was like a veil had lifted. The fever, the exhaustion, the humiliation, all of it combined into this one sharp, unforgettable moment of seeing my life for what it was. And even though it was painful, even though it hurt like hell, I knew I'd never forget it. That day, I realized what being capable really meant for me. It wasn't about praise or recognition or being celebrated. It was about survival. It was about understanding the system I had been a part of, the roles we'd all played, and finally seeing the truth in the empty seats, the spa photos, the dismissive words. It was a brutal lesson, but a lesson I needed. And lying there, shivering, exhausted, holding my diploma, I felt the first sparks of something new, the knowledge that I was capable. Yes, but now I had the choice to be capable for myself. And that even through the betrayal, even through the fever, was powerful in that moment. I promised myself I would never forget the sting, the cold, the hurt, or the lesson. I understood the pattern now. I saw it. I felt it. And it was clear my life was mine to reclaim, mine to control, and mine to celebrate, however I chose. Lying there in my apartment, still wrapped in the remnants of my graduation gown, the fever pounding in my skull, I kept thinking about those empty seats. It wasn't just disappointment, it was a kind of shock that settled deep into my bones. I realized, painfully, that this was exactly who my family was. My parents had always operated on two different scales, me on one, Chloe on another. I had been the capable one, the problem solver, the one who handled logistics, finances, emotions, you name it. Chloe, she was the golden child, always the one coddled, pampered, shielded from discomfort, the one whose mistakes were smoothed over, whose whims were indulged. And somehow, somewhere in all those years, I had internalized it. I'd thought being responsible, being reliable, being selfless would be enough to earn their love, their pride, their presence. But staring at the spa photo, seeing them laugh with Chloe while I sat feverish and alone, I understood it never had been enough. And that realization was, in a word, crushing. My body ached. Yes, fever and exhaustion making every movement a labor. But my mind was spinning through years of examples, years of small and big inequities. I had missed out on study abroad trips, staying home to help my dad recover from surgery. Chloe got the Paris trip. I had worked my way through undergrad with part-time jobs, saving for my own supplies and rent. Chloe got a BMW for her sweet 16. Every time I thought it might be different, some new example of their favoritism would flash before me, like an unkind slideshow. And now, my graduation, the culmination of years of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights, was just another checkbox that didn't matter. The pattern was so stark, I couldn't unsee it. And it wasn't subtle either, it was baked into the very structure of our family life. Every choice, every allocation of attention or money reinforced it. I had been taught, consciously or not, that capable meant dependable, but not valued. That loving my family meant putting their needs first, absorbing their stress, smoothing over everyone else's mistakes. Chloe had been taught the opposite, that the world bent to her, that she was inherently deserving, that her happiness mattered above all else. And the fever, the physical misery, the nausea, it almost seemed secondary compared to the ache of realizing this structural imbalance had defined every milestone in my life. Sitting alone, cradling my diploma like a talisman, I let myself feel the loneliness fully, not just the absence of my family that day, but the isolation of a lifetime of carrying responsibilities that no one asked for but everyone expected. And as I let that feeling settle, I started to see it all with chilling clarity. This wasn't about a spa day or missing one ceremony. It was about the invisible scaffolding of favoritism and expectation, about roles that had been assigned without my consent and enforced through subtle, constant pressure. I had been the reliable daughter, the one who understood, who strategized, who accommodated. Chloe had been the cherished, protected one. And suddenly, all those years of quiet compromise felt like a ledger that was now painfully unbalanced. The betrayal stung because it wasn't a single act. It was a crystallization of every past slight, every inequity made explicit. The illusion I had held onto that my diligence and responsibility would automatically earn recognition, love, or care had been stripped away in one stark, fever-drenched moment, and it left a sharp, burning clarity. I understood now that their behavior wasn't situational. It was systemic, structural. It had been consistent, methodical, and deeply entrenched. My parents' priorities weren't going to shift because I needed them. They were designed to favor Chloe, and they had done it from the start. That knowledge, bitter and heavy, was strangely liberating. I realized that I could no longer trust my worth or validation to be acknowledged by them. I had been capable all my life. Yes, but I had confused capability with love, reliability with attention, service with approval, and now, fevered and exhausted, alone in my apartment, I could see the pattern in its entirety. The physical exhaustion, the nausea, the headaches. They were trivial compared to the weight of that revelation. I had been the foundation that held everything up. And yet, when it mattered most, when I needed them to see me, they chose her. That image, the spa, the smiles, the blissful disregard was burned into my mind, a symbol of a system I had been navigating unknowingly. It was cruel, yes, and it hurt more than the fever ever could. But I also felt, in that moment, a subtle shift, a tiny spark of something new. I understood the system. I understood the pattern. And understanding it was the first step in untangling myself from it. For the first time, I wasn't just a capable daughter trying to earn love or approval. I was a person who could see the architecture of my own life, the structural flaws, the patterns, the inequities, and begin to plan differently. And even lying there, fevered, alone, exhausted beyond belief, I felt the beginnings of clarity, the kind that comes when pain and insight collide. I realized that this wasn't about Chloe's spa day. It wasn't about one graduation ceremony. It was about recognizing the invisible framework of favoritism that had defined my family dynamics for decades, and knowing it meant that the next steps, whatever they were, would be mine to decide. I could be capable, yes, but not for them. I could understand, yes, but not at the expense of myself. I could finally ask the entire structural imbalance for what it was. And that recognition, sharp as it was, gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt before. It was the moment the fog lifted, fever and fatigue notwithstanding, and I could finally see the pattern, the favoritism, and the long-term consequences of being invisible in the very house I had given so much of myself to. It was a bitter, cold clarity, but also the first step toward reclaiming my agency, toward realizing that being capable didn't have to mean being unseen, and that I could, at last, chart my own course beyond the invisible scaffolding of my family's expectations. After that brutal graduation, I was lying in my apartment, still weak from the fever, my head pounding, trying to process everything, and then it hit me. Grandma's duplex, I had almost forgotten about it. Fully paid off, in a neighborhood just starting to shift, a little inheritance tucked away that my parents had always brushed off. "Oh, that old thing," Mom would say. "Taxes must be a nightmare. Let your father handle it." But I hadn't let it go. I'd read the fine print, met with the lawyer, knew exactly what it was worth. It wasn't just a property, it was freedom, my safety net, my escape plan. And suddenly, something shifted inside me. For 23 years, I'd been the capable one, the one who understood, who handled problems, who sacrificed endlessly. Chloe, she was the golden one, the pampered one, the one whose every whim was indulged. And now I could finally be capable for me, not for them, not for Chloe. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheets. I meticulously kept student loans, savings, budget for my new job. Then I opened the folder about the duplex. It was like seeing a map to a new life. I felt a thrill, almost like the fever had burned away all the old constraints, leaving only clarity. I could move closer to my job, make a space of my own, and use the duplex as a financial springboard. I could live independently, make decisions for myself, and not be beholden to their whims. And there was a subtle satisfaction in that. They had spent years assuming I would always be the problem solver, the emotional buffer, the one who sacrificed. And now I had leverage. I could set boundaries, enforce them, and do it without drama, letting them realize my absence without me ever lifting a finger beyond my own plans. For the first time, my capability felt like power instead of expectation. I could take control strategically. I spent hours going over the numbers, imagining renovations, thinking about turning the second unit into a high-end rental, calculating what my life could look like if I finally prioritized myself. Every calculation, every scenario added a layer of calm, precise determination. I was no longer just reacting to their favoritism. I was stepping outside it, seeing the system clearly, and plotting my own path. The anger and hurt were still there, sure, but they were tools now, fuel for independence, for reclamation, for quiet, clever retribution if I wanted it. And for the first time, that thought didn't terrify me. It steadied me. I could finally stop being their on-call problem solver. I wouldn't fix Chloe's leases, negotiate her leases, smooth over family dramas. I could let the consequences fall on them. I could be free to live my own life without guilt. And the duplex wasn't just a symbol of financial independence. It was symbolic proof that I had the power to create the life I wanted. The money from the trust, combined with my job, meant I could live comfortably, plan for the future, and most importantly, reclaim control. I started seeing the larger picture. I wasn't a daughter who simply managed family chaos anymore. I could be a person who decided how her life unfolded. I could choose where to invest my energy, my attention, my talent, and the thought was intoxicating, calm, deliberate, strategic. This wasn't about yelling or drama. It was about reclaiming agency. I could finally put myself first in a way I hadn't dared to before. And as I sat there, fever fading, clarity settling in my chest, I began making decisions, small, intentional choices. I wouldn't attend the big dinner my parents had planned to celebrate me post-graduation. I wouldn't answer their texts or calls. I would stop being the capable one, the one who always understood, and let them notice, let them feel the impact of years of taking my reliability for granted. I had the means, the resources, the plan, and for the first time in a long time, I felt calm, steady, in control. The duplex was more than just a building. It was a foothold in a life I could finally shape for myself. I felt powerful, empowered, ready to turn the tables subtly but completely. My capability would no longer be a silent service to my family. It would be an asset I wielded for myself. And that thought, quiet and deliberate, felt like the start of something entirely new. I had control now. For the first time, I felt free, untethered, capable on my own terms. I could chart my path, plan my life, and no longer be invisible in the family I had long carried on my shoulders. The clarity, the calm, the empowerment, it was intoxicating. I knew exactly who I was now, and it wasn't just the capable Elena anymore. It was fully aware, fully independent, and ready to live life on my own terms. So, fast forward about a year, and I'm finally settling into the rhythm of my new life. My job is going well. I've moved into a smaller, sunny apartment, closer to work, and for the first time in ages, I'm actually feeling like I have a grip on things. I'm reviewing some blueprints for a project I'm managing when my phone rings. I see Mom's name, and for a moment, my instincts scream, ignore it. But curiosity gets the better of me. I pick up, hello, I say, cautiously, immediately. I'm hit with this tidal wave of artificial sweetness. Oh, Alina, darling, it's so good to hear your voice, she gushes. This over-the-top, syrupy tone she always uses when she's trying to convince someone at a restaurant or bank that she's a clever, charming force to be reckoned with. And I pause, leaning back in my chair, feeling this strange, cold curiosity bubble up inside me. I know exactly what's coming, don't I? She keeps talking, weaving this story about how they handled my graduation terribly. Apologies, she says, some acknowledgement of past mistakes, but it's fleeting, faint, like a brush of wind that promises storm. Then it comes, the ask, and it's breathtaking, in a way that makes my eyebrows practically lift themselves off my face. They want me to plan Chloe's dream college send-off. Yes, you heard that right, after a year of radio silence, of ignoring me, of all that absence and neglect. They're calling me up to do them a favor. For Chloe, my little sister, the golden one. I can feel my jaw tighten, my mind racing, trying to decide whether to laugh or hang up. And then, of course, there's Mom, almost weeping into the phone in relief and excitement that I might acquiesce. It would mean the world to Chloe and to us, she says, her voice dripping with entitlement so thick you could slice it with a knife. And here's the ironic part, the sheer audacity of it. A year later, pretending nothing happened and asking me to use my taste, my connections, my money, my time to make their lives easier. My first instinct is a slow exhale. I let the pause stretch, letting her think I'm considering it, letting the tension linger. And then, quietly, a plan begins to form. Because, see, this is exactly the kind of setup I can work with. The conservatory she mentions, Chloe's dream venue, the Willow Creek Conservatory. I practically lived there for 3 months during my thesis. It's a historical landmark, painstakingly restored, managed by the notoriously picky doctor, Alistair Finch, my mentor, my thesis advisor. The place isn't a party hall, it's a temple of architecture, and Chloe has no idea what she's asking for. And that's where the fun begins. I don't say a word yet, just let Mom keep talking, describing every little thing Chloe wants, painting me into this corner. I let the entitlement wash over me, tasting it, letting it fuel my next moves. Because now I have options, resources, a way to turn this request on its head. And the very thought makes my pulse quicken with quiet satisfaction. I keep asking questions. Slow, deliberate. The conservatory, she says. And I let my tone hover between hesitant and knowing. Oh, it's exclusive, very. But Dr. Finch, well, he's particular. But I might be able to make a call. I let the words dangle, just enough to give the impression that this is going to be complicated, that I'm going to bend myself for Chloe. But here's the thing. I'm the one who controls the levers now. I hang up, lean back, and start plotting. Step 1, call Dr. Finch. Get the venue on hold under my name for the date that fits Chloe's timeline. Step 2, pull out the trust account, the duplex money, the resources that they think are irrelevant. Step 3, get every vendor, every detail, every extravagant wish on the books under my control. Because if they think they're going to waltz back into my life and make me work for them after a year of absence, they are very, very wrong. And here's the twist, it won't be Chloe's party. Not really. Not in the way they imagine. I'll use her vision board, her list, her ideas, but the guest list, the money, the narrative, the whole event, all mine. I let myself smile. A small, quiet, almost wicked smile. This is perfect. I can give them the illusion they're in charge, that I'm doing this for Chloe while I'm actually constructing something spectacular for myself. Something that acknowledges my capability, my independence, and subtly, beautifully gives them the consequences of underestimating me. And as I open my files, start making calls, I feel calm, deliberate, empowered. Every action is measured, intentional, a careful reclaiming of control. The past year of being invisible, underappreciated, overextended, it all funnels into this moment. I can be strategic, clever, and satisfy a very personal sense of justice without ever being overt. I'm in control, I'm capable, I'm finally using all that capability for me, with the faintest, most deliciously ironic nod to the family that tried to keep me invisible. Step by step, call by call, contract by contract, I start setting the stage, and I realize, with a thrill, that this is exactly what it feels like to turn a moment of entitlement into a chance for subtle, perfect reclamation. Mom thinks she's getting her way. She thinks she's exploiting my diligence for Chloe's benefit. But really, every call, every booking, every decision I make is about me, my satisfaction, my creativity, my statement of independence, and it feels incredible. I hang up the phone and sit back, letting the satisfaction wash over me. They called, entitled, assuming I'd do their bidding, and instead, I've turned it into a play of strategy, power, and subtle revenge. I have the tools, the money, the plan, and the calm, deliberate mindset to execute it flawlessly. And the best part? They have no idea they've set the stage, and I hold the lever. This is going to be fun. All right, so here's where it really starts to get good. I pick up the phone and call Dr. Finch, the conservatory, my thesis, the place that had haunted my nights and thrilled my days for months during grad school. I can practically hear the sarcasm in his voice before he even answers. Alina, my star pupil, convincing that firm of yours to use historically accurate lime mortar yet? I laugh, trying to sound casual, and then I hit him with it a somewhat unusual request. Anything, he says. Because apparently I was the only intern who'd ever cataloged the archival blueprints without crying. I need to book the conservatory. I pause just long enough to let the weight of that request sink in. And of course, Doctor. Finch sighs like I'm about to start some over-the-top lifestyle brand, because apparently 3 influencers had tried to stage fake weddings there in 1 month. But I reassure him, it's personal. A private gala, a professional gratitude event to thank mentors and colleagues who supported me through my master's, and somehow I convince him. Step 1, the venue, secured, no charge, and he even considers it a long overdue graduation gift. I feel a twinge of guilt, but then I remember the spa photo, the empty seats, the fever. Step 2, control. I want every vendor, every contract, every tiny detail running through me. Discretion. I tell him, only me, and he agrees. The date is set. I hang up and lean back, letting the thrill of control wash over me. It's intoxicating. Suddenly, I'm the director, the client, the mastermind. Step 3, the vision board. Mom sends it an hour later. A 20-page PowerPoint of pure entitlement champagne towers, an expensive caterer, a TikTok-famous DJ, a flower wall, a monarch butterfly theme, even a link to Chloe's exact 300 sequin gown. I skim it, let out a little snort, and get to work. Every call, every contract. I take with a sly smile, because the irony isn't lost on me. I'm booking all of it under my name, with my money, from my trust account, contracts signed, deposits down, every detail on record. The caterer booked, champagne tower, ice sculpture, grand connoisseur package, the works. Yes, I called him too. Florist handled, rental furniture secured. I even make little decisions that no one else notices but me, like the ambient music the DJ will play, subtle tweaks to the flower arrangements, the layout of the lounge furniture. It's all deliberate. Every choice, a reminder that I'm the one in charge. And here's the kicker, I'm using Chloe's vision board as inspiration, sure, but every decision is filtered through me. It's my creativity, my planning, my money, my taste. Step 4, let them think they're in control. I call Mom back with a provisional hold on the date, and she's ecstatic, gushing, thinking I'm bending over backwards for Chloe, and I just smile quietly, sipping my tea, letting the tension settle in, the entitlement, the unawareness. It's almost delicious. They have no idea that this gala, this celebration, will really be about me. Not in a flashy way, not in a look at me way, but in the subtle satisfaction of having orchestrated everything flawlessly on my terms. I booked the caterer, the florist, the furniture, the ice sculpture, the champagne, the lighting. I'm meticulous. Every email, every call, every contract signed by me. And with each one, I feel this quiet pride, a calm power, like I've finally turned all the years of being the capable, reliable daughter into a resource for myself. I know exactly how this is going to play out. Mom and Dad think they're getting Chloe the perfect send-off. They think they're asking me for a favor, for my skill, for my taste. But in reality, every step, every choice is quietly, subtly, my victory. I even make small jokes to myself as I work. Little winks of self-awareness. The DJ choice is questionable, the caterer over the top. Chloe's theme, well, let's just say I maintain a straight face as I book it all. But inside I'm laughing at the absurdity of it. I'm building a party that will be spectacular, that will satisfy their expectations, while simultaneously being a statement, I am in control now. I manage every interaction, every detail, every tiny screw and bouquet. I take pride in the order, the precision, the subtle hints of irony that only I fully appreciate. And I'm deliberate. Everything, from the contracts in my name to the deposits from my trust account, sets me apart from their assumptions, their entitlement. They think I'm doing a favor for Chloe. They have no clue I'm turning it into my own celebration. My power isn't loud, it's quiet, deliberate, satisfying. I feel this calm, confident buzz, this sense that, for once, capability isn't a burden, it's an asset. I'm finally using all those years of being reliable, being the one who understood, being the one who sacrificed as leverage. And with each call, each confirmation, each signed contract, I feel the subtle thrill of control. They've handed me the setup, and I'm transforming it into my stage. It's brilliant, quiet, and completely mine. I even pause to visualize the conservatory, the guests arriving, the champagne tower sparkling, the DJ playing, the flowers arranged perfectly. I smile at the thought that they think they're in charge, while every step, every choice, every glittering detail has passed through my hands, and I feel a deep satisfaction, a subtle revenge, a quiet, calm empowerment. This isn't just a party. It's my statement, my demonstration, my silent assertion that being capable can be beautiful, powerful, and entirely self-serving if you know how to wield it. And yes, maybe a little ironic too. The week leading up to the party was something else. I knew it would be messy, but even I didn't expect the sheer chaos that unfolded. And honestly, it was kind of beautiful. It started small, almost comically so. First, Mom. Her calls came in a steady stream, increasingly high-pitched and panicked. At first, she was all sugar and pleading, trying to negotiate details, asking questions about the caterer, the flower wall, the DJ, and oh, what about vegetarian options for Aunt Susan? And I just calmly sipped my tea, listening to the rising tide of entitlement, letting her words wash over me. Every question, every gasp, every frenzied syllable was another thread I could use. Another piece of the setup I'd been crafting in my head. I didn't answer everything at once, of course. Strategic pauses, small sighs, measured tones. Let her stew a little. Let her think she was steering the ship while I held all the ropes. It was hilarious. Almost. But also delicious. Then Dad chimed in. Eventually. Always the passive enabler. The one who tiptoed around Mom's storms. His voicemail was a masterpiece of forced gravitas. Alina, he said, this stunt is deeply immature. You are hurting your sister. You are embarrassing your mother. Whatever point you think you're making, you've made. Now be a good girl, call the vendors, and put your sister's name on the event. I replayed that message a few times, just letting the ridiculousness sink in. His voice, the faux authority, the complete failure to understand the real game in play. It was perfect. I let the voicemail sit. I didn't call back. Not immediately. Not at all. Meanwhile, Chloe. She started with Instagram. Of course. A black and white video, single tear rolling down her cheek. Perfectly positioned for dramatic effect. Feeling so betrayed right now. She whispered, "You think you know people, and then they just take your entire dream from you. Pray for me." I watched it, muted, and I could almost hear her gasps echoing off the walls of my apartment. The entitlement and shock were palpable, almost tangible, and I just smiled, quietly, strategically, because I had spent a year building this life, building this moment. They had no idea what was coming. Each phone buzz, each voicemail, each Instagram post was another drumbeat in the crescendo I was orchestrating. I didn't respond immediately. I let them feel the anxiety, the disbelief, the creeping tension. Mom left a string of increasingly hysterical voicemails that would make anyone else panic. "Alina, you are breaking this family apart. Honey, let's talk. We can compromise." And Dad, always a little slower to react, finally caught on and called again, a tone heavy with a gravitas that felt ridiculous, almost theatrical. "Alina, this is deeply immature. You are embarrassing your sister, your mother. Now be a good girl," and he, too, met with silence. Blissful, deliberate silence. I let it linger, each unanswered call another punctuation mark in my growing sense of power. And Chloe, predictably, she doubled down on social media. Her followers were probably already forming a narrative of betrayal and heartbreak. She didn't know how to process the idea that I could quietly, cleverly, take control. She thought it was a tantrum, a dramatic outburst, but really, it was a carefully orchestrated demolition of the family's assumptions. Every post, every frantic call, every pleading message from my parents, it all fed into the tension building for the real reveal, the moment they would actually see the results of my planning, and that the anticipation of the moment made the small frustrations of phone calls, scheduling, and double-checking vendors feel almost fun. Yes, I said fun, because I knew exactly how this would unfold. I had the venue, the contracts, the deposits, the entire guest list, everything in my control. Every text, every frantic email from my mother asking about a detail, every shocked voicemail from my father was a tiny reminder that I held the lever. I was calm, measured, strategic. I imagined the scene over and over their faces when they finally realized that all the planning, all the money, all the decisions were mine. Every detail of the extravagant send-off, under my name, paid from my account, controlled by me. I could almost hear Mom's gasp, Dad's tense voice, Chloe's tearful scream. And I let the image settle in my mind, because that anticipation, that subtle power, was part of the plan. The tension built in layers, small confrontations over the phone, the constant barrage of social media posts, frantic attempts to contact me, they were all part of the overture. I remained unshaken, letting each message and call escalate the tension, letting them climb the walls of their own expectations, not realizing I had already mastered the stage. Every vendor confirmation, every payment sent, every RSVP tracked was a quiet assertion of control. And the irony wasn't lost on me. They thought I was doing this for Chloe. They thought I was bending over backward after a year of neglect, of absence, of outright betrayal. But I was doing it for me, for the satisfaction of finally being seen, finally being in charge, finally turning their entitlement into an opportunity for subtle, deliberate empowerment. I kept my phone close, letting each new voicemail, each frantic text, each Insta story add to the crescendo of anticipation. I could hear them faltering in real time. Mom's voice rising, Dad's exasperation growing, Chloe's social media cries getting more dramatic. And I stayed calm, unflappable, strategic. I had mapped this out over months, envisioned it from the moment they called me, and now it was unfolding exactly as I imagined. Every call left unanswered, every text allowed to linger, every social media post observed in silence was another brick in the wall of tension I was building. And in that silence, that observation, I found a sort of giddy satisfaction. They had assumed, as always, that capable Alina would absorb their chaos, smooth over the drama, and fix everything. But this time, I was stepping outside the system, watching the chaos react to me, not the other way around. I could feel the slow, deliberate shaping of the narrative. By the time they realized what I had done, that I was in complete control, the shock would be delicious. They would try to negotiate, plead, argue, all while I simply executed the plan I had carefully constructed. The week passed in a symphony of these interactions, each one adding tension, each one a subtle rehearsal for the moment of revelation. And as I sat there, calmly sipping tea, reviewing contracts, confirming vendors, and silently smiling at Chloe's oblivious sense of betrayal, I realized just how perfect it all was. I had turned their entitlement, their ignorance, their assumptions into a slow, precise buildup to my own triumph. The crescendo would be unforgettable, and they had no idea it was coming. Every call, every message, every social media update was another brushstroke in the masterpiece I was quietly painting, and I couldn't help but appreciate the irony, the beauty, and the control I now held. The night of the party, I arrived early. And honestly, I felt a kind of calm I hadn't felt in my entire life. I'd spent the afternoon at a real spa massage, manicure, hair, makeup, the works. It wasn't about showing off. It was about feeling good, centered, confident. I had on a custom-made gown in a deep emerald green, something bold and architectural, elegant. And yes, it cost more than my first car. But that didn't matter. This night was mine. The conservatory was breathtaking. Marco, the florist, had outdone himself. White orchids everywhere, gold accents glimmering under the soft lighting. The lounge furniture was arranged in intimate, sophisticated pods. The monarch butterfly ice sculpture glistened in the center, a perfect nod to Chloe's vision board, though now entirely under my control. And there it was, the Champagne Tower, a shimmering pyramid of crystal, waiting. Guests began arriving. Dr. Finch, looking dapper in a velvet blazer, kissed my hand and called me a savior of the building. Cynthia, my boss, arrived with her husband and handed me a bottle of 30-year-old scotch, teasing that I was finally spending my money wisely. Aunt Rosa and a flurry of cousins showed up, flan in hand, ready for the celebration. I couldn't help but smile. For the first time, the room was full of people who actually mattered to me. The energy was electric, warm, genuine. And then, at 7:15, I saw them. Through the glass doors, Margaret, David, and Chloe, dressed to the nines. Chloe in her 300 sequin gown, Mom stiff in a formal dress, Dad in a sharp suit. They looked like a perfect happy family, marching toward the entrance, oblivious to what was about to happen. I had stationed 2 professional security guards at the door and a young woman named Anna managing the guest list on a tablet. I watched them approach, confidence growing, heart steady. "We're here for the party," Margaret announced a little too loudly. Anna smiled politely, tapping on her tablet. "Wonderful. And what's the name?" she asked. Margaret stammered, clearly caught off guard. "Russo, of course. Margaret Russo, David, and Chloe." Anna's smile didn't waver. I'm sorry. I don't have Margaret, David, or Chloe Russo on the list." And then the shock. Margaret's voice cracked. "That's ridiculous. This is our party. Elena?" I smiled, waved, and began descending the grand cast iron staircase. The music softened, all eyes on me. I felt like the star of my own movie. I addressed them, my voice calm but amplified slightly by the acoustics. "Mom, Dad, Chloe, you're here. Wonderful. I was so worried you wouldn't come." And there it was, their faces starting to register disbelief. "Alina, what is the meaning of this?" Dad demanded, stepping forward, tension radiating from him. "Tell the guard to let us in," he added, almost pleading. I tilted my head, mock confusion in my tone. "But you're not on the list." Chloe's gasp was audible, her voice high-pitched. "That's not funny." I hardened my tone, calm and precise. "As I've explained, this is my party, paid for by my money, at a venue I secured to celebrate my graduation." Every word landed like a brick, deliberate and unyielding. I turned to the room, gesturing to the guests milling around, all watching, all aware that something extraordinary was unfolding. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "As you know, I called this a gratitude gala, and I meant it. I wanted to thank all of you, my friends, my mentors, my real family, for supporting me. A year ago, I graduated with my master's degree, a big day for me, but my immediate family, Margaret, David, and Chloe, couldn't make it." A murmur ran through the crowd, shock mixing with delight. I let it settle, letting the story sink in. Aunt Rosa crossed her arms, nodding slowly. "You see," I continued, "they had something very important to do." Chloe, the golden child, was now visibly shaking. The murmurs turned into a collective gasp as I recounted the spa weekend, the stress before her freshman finals, the complete disregard for my milestone. "Doctor," Finch's eyes practically bulged. I could see the pride in the room for how perfectly the space had been curated under my guidance. I let the pause linger. I could see it, the shock, the dawning realization, the sheer audacity of what had been executed under their noses. And then I dropped the final, subtle but crushing detail, all the planning, all the contracts, all the deposits. Everything had been under my control. Their faces froze. They had no words. They thought they were coming to Chloe's party. They thought I was doing them a favor. And instead, every element, the venue, the vendors, the guests, the celebration was mine, meticulously orchestrated. A perfect, indulgent celebration of me. Chloe broke first, not the slow, dramatic heroine tear she usually practiced, but an ugly, gulping, furious sob. "You ruined my life. I'll never be able to show my face again," she cried. I met her eyes with flat calm. "You'll be fine," I said. "Mom and Dad will buy you a new party. They always do." Mom's face was a mask of white fury, eyes full of pure hatred, and she whispered, almost reverently, "This isn't over, Elena." I turned, voice firm, addressing the security guard. "Anna, these 3, Margaret, David, and Chloe Russo, are not on the list. They are trespassing." The guard stepped forward gently but firmly. They just stood there, stunned, defeated. And I turned back to my guests, lifted a glass of champagne, and smiled. To new beginnings, I said, and to finally being understood. The room erupted in applause, laughter filling the conservatory. I watched their silhouettes disappear through the glass doors, and I felt this wave of relief, triumph, and satisfaction unlike anything I'd known. Everyone else was celebrating, enjoying the evening, and for the first time, I felt truly, unequivocally celebrated myself. The flan was devoured in minutes. Cynthia and Dr. Finch got into a nerdy debate about brutalist architecture. My colleagues saw a new side of me, and I saw a new side of them. I wasn't capable Alina anymore. Not responsible Alina. I was just Alina, having the time of my life, orchestrating a perfect, poetic closure on years of being invisible and overlooked. And in that moment, every detail, every ounce of planning, every subtle twist of irony landed perfectly. It was more than a party. It was justice. It was celebration. It was liberation, all rolled into one sparkling, unforgettable night. The morning after the party, it was surprisingly quiet. I expected chaos, yelling, frantic calls, a scene. Instead, the fallout was subtle, almost poetic. Mom, true to form, had launched her little smear campaign, calling relatives, trying to paint me as a cruel, cold, unstable daughter who stole Chloe's party. I let it roll off me, honestly. It backfired spectacularly. Aunt Rosa had already spilled the truth, framing the story correctly, and everyone else. Once they heard the real narrative, saw through Mom's dramatics, Chloe's friends, who had been expecting to see a Willow Creek Conservatory extravaganza, ended up witnessing the truth in pieces online. The entitlement, the fantasy of Chloe's perfect send-off, unraveled quietly. Her actual send-off, I later heard, was a sad backyard barbecue with a handful of my mother's friends, all pretending to be concerned for me, no doubt. And Dad, he sent me a single text, just one. I'm sorry, your mother, she's, well, sorry. Weak, passive, distant. That was the first and only apology I got from him. I didn't reply. Why would I? It was enough. I'd had my moment, orchestrated it perfectly, and no further engagement was necessary. That week, I felt this sense of calm and clarity, the kind you only feel when you know, deep down, that you're finally. I had my grandmother's trust, my new job paying well, the duplex providing rental income. I could live on my terms, make decisions for myself, and most importantly, no longer be the invisible, overextended, ever-capable daughter. I was in control. Fully. I started using that week to focus on me. I moved into my own loft, a sunlit, light-filled space in a converted warehouse, exposed brick, original steel beams, concrete floors, the kind of place that reflects your life, unfinished, but entirely yours. I spread out my blueprints across the floor, thinking about the renovations, the layout, the design, every small decision, from the placement of a bookshelf to the choice of flooring, was mine alone. And it felt incredible. I wasn't just surviving, I was building wealth, building comfort, building a life that was authentically mine. The duplex and its second unit, once dismissed by my parents, were now part of a carefully curated plan that gave me financial freedom and stability. The first rental, high-end, attracting the right tenants, made me feel like an architect of my own destiny because, in a way, I could see the small victories stacking up successful first week at my job, impressed bosses, smooth tenant interactions, thoughtful interior decisions. Every one of them reinforced the quiet, steady power I had been cultivating for a year. And the irony wasn't lost on me. The family that had relied on my capability, assumed it was limitless, and taken my patience for granted, was now utterly irrelevant in the life I was designing. My satisfaction wasn't loud or vengeful. It was deliberate, calm, a warm glow that came from reclaiming space and respect without confrontation. I spent hours imagining the parties, the celebrations, the life I had been denied by constant prioritization of Chloe. Now, the energy I had once given freely to manage family crises, solve problems, and absorb stress, I poured into my career, my spaces, my friends, the people who mattered, my old family, their drama, their entitlement. It all became background noise. I heard fragments here and there. Chloe remained Chloe, bouncing between majors, racking up debts, indulged endlessly by my parents. My mother, ever concerned with appearances, remained absorbed in her own anxieties and social games. My father, quiet and passive, continued on in the periphery, but I didn't care. I had my life, my home, my work, my circle. And that was everything. 6 months later, I was sitting on the concrete floor of my loft, renovations nearly complete, blueprints of my life spread around me. My phone buzzed. It wasn't my family, it was friends, excited about my housewarming, my choices, my new life. I smiled, sipping coffee, realizing fully that I had finally escaped the framework that had kept me small. I was financially independent, emotionally free, and fully in control. Every step, from orchestrating Chloe's party under my terms to leveraging my grandmother's trust, had been deliberate. The poetic justice wasn't just in the party, it was in the transformation of my life. I wasn't capable Alina or responsible Alina anymore. I was simply Alina. And this loft, these blueprints, this calm, deliberate independence, it was all mine. And as I looked around, taking in the beams, the light, the quiet hum of possibility, I felt it freedom, satisfaction, and the subtle, perfect irony of finally being the person who decided what celebration, what life, and what recognition looked like, entirely on my terms. And that's the story. Sometimes standing up for yourself, quietly, cleverly, and with patience pays off in ways you never expected. It's about reclaiming your space, your worth, and your voice. Even when others try to take it for granted, for me, it was a party, a home, a sense of independence I'd earned through strategy and resilience. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had a moment where being smart and patient completely changed the game for you? Drop a comment and share.